So I asked myself, does it make sense to get a CCR or is it complete waste of money? I'm diving now for over 20 years and I never stepped seriously into rebreather diving. I did some dives from time to time and tried different rebreathers in the past. I remember doing some dives on the Drigger, Dolphin and the Ray in the very old days, some dives on rebreathers like the TR300 and some CCRs, but I never really considered going down that path. I always feared the costs and thought it might take me ages to break even the acquisition costs. With helium prices rising constantly over the last few years, I thought it through more often but was well aware that many people tend to dress up their cost calculation when it comes to fancy toys like CCRs. I was at a point where I had to seriously ask myself, do I want to buy a rebreather or not? Does it make sense or is it a complete waste of money? Buying a rebreather is a very costly investment. You might save a lot of money because on a rebreather you burn a lot less gas in comparison to open circuit diving. That means especially on expensive gases like Trimix you can save a lot of money. But even on air or nitric 32 you could save some money because you don't have to fill so often and hence don't have to drive to the next filling station as frequently as on OC, and hence might save a lot of money because you don't have to drive and save gas in your car. On the other hand, every dive requires the use of CO2 absorbent because you need to remove CO2 from your breathing mix on a rebreather. Plus, you need pure oxygen on every dive and have to regularly replace oxygen sensor cells. But there's something more to rebreather diving than just the financial aspect, to which I come in a bit. Diving a CCR, especially on deeper dives, gives you much more margin for error. If something goes wrong deep down below, your clock really starts ticking. You burn gas quickly on depth. The CCR gas consumption in turn is independent from your depth, so you are basically only limited by the absorbent endurance, which is more than 200 minutes on a fresh absorbent canister. And that means even on depth, you have plenty of time to literally take a slow breath and resolve problems. Another thing is gas logistics. While in OC, you have to refill your tanks after only very few dives, depending on the dive, even after every dive. With a rebreather, you use only a tiny bit of gas from your tanks. Especially in areas with poor infrastructure where no filling station is accessible, you can do a whole week of diving with only one double set and maybe 1 or 2 3-liter oxygen tanks and a canister of absorbent. This lets you go diving without the logistics and the dependence on filling stations necessary. Especially for projects in remote areas, this is an extreme advantage. And since the diluent usage is so low, you are much more flexible with the CCR. The unit gives you a constant oxygen partial pressure. Hence, with the same gas mix, you can easily do a 6-meter dives or a 100-meter dive without switching the tanks and without burning huge amounts of very expensive gas on a shallow dive. Putting aside other reasons to dive a rebreather, in this video I wanted to look deeper into the financial aspect. How could I find out if it is financially sensible to buy a rebreather for me or not? And after how many dives owning a rebreather would it be broken even? Basically, what could I do to make a sound decision? I did what I always do when in doubt. I create an Excel sheet, and here it is. Let me explain it to you. So I created it in Google Docs, Google Drive, so you can access it too, and I put the links in the description later so you can use it yourself. So what I basically did is you can punch in your values in the yellow cells, and the gray ones you cannot do anything because this is more or less the fixed cells. So first of all, you need to know how many dives you do in which depth range. I put here the average duration of the dive in minutes. You can change that to whatever you think is appropriate for you. I just for the first shot I just put in some values that are more or less realistic for me. Then I have here the gas cost per dive in OC, and this is just a rough estimation. Because I don't really count for the bagasse and the deco gas and so on. I just counted the overall gas costs per dive in OC, and you could do it much more precisely. So for me, it's pretty safe to say that I can make a lot of Tech 1 dives on the CCR because I've got plenty opportunities in the 30 to 50 meter range close by. For deeper dives, I've got to travel a little bit further, and I cannot really estimate how many dives I'm going to do in the 50 plus meter range, so I don't want to count them in. I'm pretty sure I can do quite some, but I try to be conservative here. Doing deeper dives just favors the CCR anyway and makes it break even just faster. So I think I can, just a first guesstimation, I get 40 dives below the 30 meter range, and I think this number is quite disputable because I think for really shallow after work dives in the summer where we go like to 20 meters or something, I think I just would go for OC anyway. But for now, let's have it 40 dives. The average duration of a dive is 90 minutes. You can adjust it if you like. The gas cost per OC dive, I counted for €5 because with a double 12, I usually... So this is for a double 12. I calculated for a double 12. If you like to use your version of this table, you can easily have a number of different tanks here, and if you use different tanks you can just calculate it yourself, but this is for a double 12, and I calculated €5 for a nitroc 32 I use in the double 12 in the range, so I tried to make it simple and stupid, and this is the quick and dirty estimation of how much gas the diluent gas costs me. The CCR has, I call it a stretching factor. The CCR uses much less gas from your double set you have on the CCR, or from the diluent. That doesn't matter if you use a double set. I would use the GOE configuration of the JJ CCR. That means I have a double 7 on the back, and so I call the diluent stretching factor of 8. That means that it only uses 1/8 of the costs it has for OC diving. You can look in this field. This is easy, so I just multiplied that with 1 and divided by the diluent stretching factor. You see, if I punch in a less fortunate factor, then the gas costs for the diluent per dive rises. I just leave it now for 8. Some people tend to go for 9 or 10. Maybe you waste more diluent on your dives, and then it's maybe 6, 7, something like that. I will find out in the future what my stretching factor is really. So as I said, I can do a number of dives in the range between 30 and 50 meters, so the Tech 1 range. And let's say I do per year, let's say 15 dives in that range. I think that's safe to say I can do. If not another pandemic strikes and I'm able to travel and travel close by and there's no lockdowns, I think I can do. The average duration I calculated 60 minutes, and the gas cost per dive in OC would be 140 euros. So I calculated the standard Tech 1 set, let's say 2135 or 1845, and one deco tank with 50%. That's roughly the costs. Maybe the costs are a little bit higher with the rising helium prices. Whoever wants to improve this table can for sure get like a helium price inflation factor to calculate for the future if you like. But seriously, let's face it, the more expensive the helium is getting, the earlier the CCR breaks even. So I have 55 dives a year, which is quite realistic. If I do some classes, I for sure do more dives a year, but the rest of the dives, pretty sure I do on OC anyway, because they're shallow, they're training dives, stuff like that. The next thing you really need to know is your filling cost, because when you go, or you can save some travels to the filling station because you don't have to fill so often on the CCR in comparison to the OC. Then you don't burn as much gasoline from your car. So this is important. You can punch here in how far you need to drive to get your tanks filled in kilometers, because I'm coming from a metric country, I use it in kilometers. You can easily convert it to miles in your version if you want to. So for me, it would be both ways, something like 30 kilometers, I think. Let's now go for 25 cents per kilometer. I think this is safe to say. So how many tank sets do you have? This is important because if you have more double 12 sets, then you don't need to drive for every filling, because you can drive once, fill all your sets, and then just dive them until they are empty and go. So I have four double sets. That means I can drive once to the filling station, fill all my 4 double sets, and then come back, and then I can do like between 4 to 8, 9, 10 dives on these. So what's your scrubber time in minutes? This is to calculate the costs for your scrubber, so your CO2 absorbent for the CCR. The longer you can do, you can dive on one scrubber before replacing it, the cheaper it gets. So the GUE official number is 200 minutes. The price per 20 kilograms softener lime, I think it's now up to 145 euros. Maybe it's rising. You could at any time apply an inflation price raising factor here over the future to calculate it for a longer period of time, whatever you like. But just keep it simple and stupid, now have 145 euros. The oxygen costs per liter. So on the CCR you have one 3-liter oxygen tank, and that 3-liter oxygen tank needs to be refilled. You use around half a bar for every minute you spend in the water with it, and you need some oxygen for the calibration and stuff like that, and something, maybe you get some leakages, so you lose some oxygen. And I here calculate the filling costs for the oxygen, which is now for me around 2 cents per liter. So oxygen is not very expensive, but the prices are rising here as well. So I now calculate 2 cents per liter of oxygen. Now on a CCR you have oxygen cells. On the JJ CCR you have to replace them every year, so they are good for 12 months. So and you have to put in the price per cell. By now the price is 100 euros per cell, and this is currency. Okay, so it's 100 euros per cell, and the JJ CCR has 3 cells. So maybe you use another CCR like the Liberty, which has I think 4 cells, then it's a little bit more expensive, but for a JJ CCR it would be 300 euros roughly every year. Then the unit is is electric or uses batteries for the controller, the solenoid functioning, all that kind of stuff. So you need some batteries. They are not crazy expensive and they last very long. I would go for 10 euros a year so I can replace, or let's say we get 15 euros a year or something, so I can replace all the batteries every year, which is not really necessary, but I could do it. Then maybe, so this is a religious question. Some people never disinfect their counterlungs and the breathing loop. Some people do it every dive, and that depends on how often you do it and how much of the disinfectant you use. The standard is that you use the Virkon S, and yeah, what is the disinfectant costs per year? I think one can of Virkon S costs around 45 euros or something, and I think I don't use more than 45. I will do some more videos about CCRs in the future, and I will cover that too. So how often do you need to disinfect your counterlungs? And I will cover that, as you know, I'm a biologist, I will cover that from a scientific perspective. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, and never miss upcoming videos, especially not the video about how often do you need to disinfect your counterlungs. So for now, I punch in here 45 euros per year. So all the costs are the costs or everything I need for 1 year. So I calculated for 1 year. So this is everything for my table you need to know. And in the end, I get here the calculation of how many drives to the filling station are necessary. It's 14 drives for the OC. For the CCR, I just need to drive 4 times a year to the filling station. I don't know if it's really realistic, but what I calculated, it seems to be realistic. So the costs to get to the filling station are 105 euros per year, 30 euros for the CCR. The gas cost, this is a huge factor. So the gas costs for the dives I punched in here are 2,300 euros per year for 40 dives below 30 meters and 15 dives in the Tag 1 range. It's 2,300 euros, and I only get 287.50 per year. So I save a lot of money. And for sure, if I do, let's say I do 400 meter dives, then yeah, this is rising pretty quickly. And you see, if you do deep dives, many deep dives, then the OC costs are skyrocketing, while the CCR costs are just okay. So these are the costs for the OC diving. So the gas cost to get to the filling station and the gas cost itself. I don't count batteries. I don't count maintenance for it. You could say, yeah, you have to calculate maintenance costs in, but I would say the costs are roughly the same between OC and CCR. Maybe you have some more O-rings. Maybe you have to replace a little bit, let's say the counterline, stuff like that every year. You could, let's give it, for these things, let's take like 50 euros every year. So I can go for, I can just add it to the battery costs. Battery costs plus rest or plus maintenance. So let's get 50 euros per year for maintenance. So I have 65 euros, and I can just play around with that. And then I have the other cost of the CCR, the scrubbers I need per year. It's 22.5 scrubbers. Every scrubber contains 2.8 kilograms of softball lime and lasts 200 minutes. Basically, I just divided the number of minutes I spend in the water Here you can see I just divided by the average scrubber time I have. The longer I go with one scrubber, of course, the amount of scrubbers I need are lower, and then the scrubber costs are going down. If I punch in 400, then yeah, I have to half the costs here. But let's say it's 200, be conservative. The cell costs per year are 300. The O2 consumption in liters per year are around 4,500 because you need 1 liter oxygen per minute you dive. Let's say I do a little bit more. Let's say I give it 10% plus because I need to calibrate and stuff like that. So I give it like 1.1 more, so I have a little bit more oxygen consumption, so I can have some more oxygen for calibration. I'm losing oxygen. I accidentally opened the valve and something has gone away, so let's calculate 10%, or call that oxygen waste or something like that. Oxygen waste factor, something like that. No, it's 10%. So I can here go and calculate it times 1 plus this. Yeah. So if my waste factor is more, then this goes higher. Now let's calculate 10% waste factor per year. So my oxygen costs per year are 99 euros. Now I get the total costs to run the dives in OC, the total costs to run the dives in CCR. You see it's significantly more in OC. The difference is here, and now I calculate the unit price. So the unit price is 8,500. I think it's a little bit more by now. So you can say you need the unit, plus you need the GUE upgrade, you need to buy some stuff. So let's say if you buy a new one, it's 9,500, and you can just buy 9,500, something like that. The course you need to do, because I think you are already Tech 1 certified if you think about going for CCR. If you're not certified, you need the course. It costs you 3,000. Of course, it's a fun course and you learn something and it's valuable, but still you have to count it in. Let's say for the course, it's 3,000 depending on where you do it and how much travel cost you have for the course. So in the end, the total costs to get your hands on a GUE CCR in GUE configuration will be 12,500 euros. So it breaks even after 11.14 years. So what I did here is total costs divided by the difference per year, and I get to the amount of years. And of course, if I do like a crazy number of deep dives, like 30 here and 20 here, of course you see then it's breaking even after 3/4 of a year. For me, it could be something around, let's say, 10 years or something to break the unit even. So this sheet is only my first very naive version. I know it could be much more precise. For example, you could calculate the gas cost more precisely from the liter price of helium if you don't go to filling stations but do the fillings yourself. If you have separate double sets for trimix and for nitrox, you could save a nice amount of money because you don't need to fill a full double set every time you go diving. You can just top it up. I'd like to make this a community thing. My table is available on Google Drive under CC license, and I'd like to ask you to help me improve it. You can just download it and add whatever you feel is necessary to make it better. Please send me your versions on ben@gue.com and create an awesome table that helps others in making a sound decision on the financial aspect of rebreather diving. From the financial perspective, going for CCR makes only sense if you do enough trimix dives every year. A shallow dive that could be done on nitrox 32 or air in OC is most likely more expensive on a CCR. The more trimix dives you do, the faster a CCR breaks even. Still, you have to take into consideration that going for CCR is not the quickest way to really go deep. At least in the GOE world, you first need to do the Tech 1 class and complete at least 25 non-training Tech 1 level dives before you can even go for a CCR 1 class, and that's the absolute minimum. And from there you need to do 25 CCR 1 dives in the recreational range below 30 meters, which is the expensive range, before you can start doing Tech 1 level dives on the CCR. And you need 25 additional dives beyond 30 meters on the CCR to be able to go for the CCR 2. Beyond that point, the CCR pays off pretty quickly, but you have to get there first. In the meantime, you spend around 50 dives that are not significantly cheaper on the CCR or even a little bit more expensive than in OC, plus you need the additional classes, travel and so on, and you have to buy the unit, which is above 10,000 euros/dollars in the end. The question in the beginning was, does it make sense for me personally to go for CCR? When you just look at the money, maybe not really. You don't really save some money. Maybe yes, if you do many deep trimix dives, but still facing reality, I know that I'm going to do many more trimix dives once I own a CCR than I would have done without it. So I'll most likely not save a single cent on the CCR, but I'll do much more enjoyable dives, have more margin to solve problems and less stressful logistics. So yes, for me, looking at the big picture, not only at money, a CCR makes perfectly sense. But what do you think? Do you already own a CCR? If yes, did it pay off for you? Or if no, do you consider buying one? Is or was money an important point for you? What do you think about my amortization table? Let's discuss in the comment section, and since I'm going to produce more CCR related content in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell and never miss upcoming videos. See you there.